Well, Roger called me. I'm gonna preface my lesson. Roger called me Friday morning, or texted me Friday morning, and asked if I would merge my class and your class together. And I told him, I said, well, give me a couple of hours. So I need to think about it because my class is different focus and not a bad idea. But I was like, let me think about it. And I called him Friday before the storms rolled in. And I said, Roger, is there anybody else that can teach your class? I said, not that I'm saying no. I said, but is there anybody else? Well, Roger's sick. Now Teresa. Greg had already planned a trip to see his mom down in, is it Glasgow where she lives? Morgantown. I think it's her birthday. I think is what I understand. Either way, doesn't matter. Larry and Vicky ended up losing power, and they're still without power. And Mike's mama, Mike's spending a lot of time with his mom. She's not in the best of cases right now. So, anyways, the buck finally came back, and he said, "Well, ain't nobody." So y'all are left with me. I'm sorry for that, but the blessing in that is that he was able to send me his notes. So I do have Roger's notes on what to discuss. The bum part about that is that shortly after our phone call, we lost power, or people lost power. I lost internet, and I did not realize how dependent my life is on the internet. Not that I didn't know it, but I have a whole bunch of books in my office, or a fair amount of books in my office. Well, Friday I wasn't in my office, and the power or the internet goes down. Well, I got books on the computer that require the internet. So I tried my best using this little screen to read and to find things so that I could research, to very little avail. So I have a few things that we'll go over today. I'm going to do the best I can with Roger's notes, which are wonderful notes, by the way. But I'm going to do the best I can with what I got. And you may get out of here early. I may start talking. The Spirit may overcome me, and we may be here till midnight. I don't know what's about to happen. I hope that ultimately, I hope that God is praised and that you were blessed. So we'll start with that. I do have an opening question for us to think on. And here's the opening question is, would like for you to share a thing or an event that you are really looking forward to. Share a thing or an event. Well, Martha's eyes got about as big as saucers. What you got, Martha?
My grandson, 15-year-old.
Did you already get the injections? His high school class is going. You're getting to go. Well, now what are you going to do in New York?
From 7 o'clock in the morning till 10 at night.
You been to New York before? Anyone been to New York before? Oh man, what should she go see? Statue of Liberty. Okay, well you got one. Statue of Liberty. Okay. What, Central Park? Central Park? Okay. Going to Chinatown? Okay. Oh, shopping. Okay. Well, y'all got an itinerary already set up for. Well, good. Who? Whew. Well, good for you, Martha. Good for you. Who else? Something that you were looking forward to, Betty?
I have 2 sons. 4 grandsons and 3 great-grandsons. In the end of April, we are having a little girl.
Oh, wonderful. Oh, is there a name yet for the little girl? It's okay.
I'll tell you later.
You tell us later. You got some time to look it up or to figure it out. It's okay. Oh, wonderful, wonderful news, Jerry.
We're going to Watkins County, from the Art, this Watkins County trip is coming up in a couple of weeks.
Yeah.
On that day, we'll be able to go,
Okay.
but I'm looking forward to it.
Man, if you haven't been,
I haven't been.
it's impressive. Impressive.
Here's my baby.
Oh, okay. Okay. Bring walking shoes. Let's put it that way. Bring good walking shoes. There's plenty of places to sit down, but it's impressive. Okay.
And Allison and Leah, they just got back from New York not too long ago. They were fortunate enough to see Dave's cousin, Michaela Renfro, who she used to come here, but she was in the Louisville. She's in Wicked on Broadway.
Oh,
And they got to see her before. So that was awesome.
that's something cool. Ah, Wicked on Broadway.
I'm going to see a Broadway play, but can't remember the name.
That's okay. That's okay. Well, let's go ahead and get into our Bibles for a moment. As we open up, we're going to be in 2 Peter today. We're going to focus on verses 3 through 25, really the whole chapter. And so, kind of as we enter into our text today, something that the book is highlighting is this longing or this expectation of an eternal home. That's something that we as Christians look forward to. And much the same way we have things that we look forward to, the here and the now, things that we're going to get to do and trips we're going to get to make or babies we'll get to see. But we look forward as Christians to an eternal home. And so what we kind of see here is that in the letter, 2 Peter, as Peter's writing here, he is writing to a group of folks who are enduring persecution. So we want to keep that as present in our mind while we read. These people are enduring persecution. And so the call here is to be faithful regardless of the pain of life. Death would not be uncommon for these early Christians, as we would know in other accounts, and the same would be true here. But the call is to be faithful in spite of the pains of life. And so there's a key topic or a key theme in the book of 2 Peter, and that is suffering. Let's start off by reading verses 3. Actually, I'm going to start at verse 1, but the text will be 3 through 12 for a moment. Let's read this together. Peter, an apostle of Jesus Christ, to those who are elect exiles of the dispersia of Pontus, Galatia, Cappadocia, Asia, and Bithynia, according to the foreknowledge of God the Father and sanctification of the Spirit, for obedience to Jesus Christ and for sprinkling with his blood. May grace and peace be multiplied to you. Blessed be the God and Father of our Lord Jesus Christ. According to his great mercy, he has caused us to be born again to a living hope through the resurrection of Jesus Christ from the dead, to an inheritance that is imperishable, undefiled, and unfading, kept in heaven for you, who by God's power are being guarded through faith for a salvation ready to be revealed in the last time. In this you rejoice, though now for a little while, if necessary, you have been grieved by various trials, so that the tested genuineness of your faith, more precious than gold that perishes though it is tested by fire, may be found to result in the praise and glory and honor at the revelation of Jesus Christ. Though you have not seen him, you love him. Though you do not now see him. You believe in him and rejoice that it is, rejoice with joy that is inexpressible and filled with glory, obtaining the outcome of your faith, the salvation of your souls. Concerning this salvation, the prophets who prophesied about the grace that was to be yours searched and inquired carefully, inquiring what person or time the Spirit of Christ in them was indicating when he predicted the suffering of Christ and the subsequent glories. It was revealed to them that they were serving not themselves, but you, in the things that have now been announced to you through those who preach the good news to you by the Holy Spirit sent from heaven, things into which angels long to look. Boy, there is a lot in that. And we're not going to scratch, we're going to barely scratch the surface today. As we kind of open up, I want you to go back to verse 3. We see an instant blessing to God. But what's the blessing for? Why does Peter shout a blessing to God? Because of Jesus' death and resurrection, we have a living hope. Did you say birth? A new birth. We have a new birth. We have a living hope. We see here, as he says in the halfway point of verse 3, that living hope because of the resurrection. So he gives this praise and this glory to God because we have been born again. And this being born again grants us the living hope. And so as he goes on, he says that he then calls this an inheritance. When we say inheritance, what do we mean? The home in heaven with him is an inheritance. Something that is given to you by someone who has passed on. So we look at this inheritance. It is something that is given to us by Christ or by God, who he passed away for a little while and is giving us. And then we come upon three words here that are very beautiful words. Matter of fact, if you have a pencil, I would underline these words. Just if you're not a Bible writer, don't worry about it. But if you are, that is imperishable, undefiled, unfading. I guess you could almost say four, kept in heaven for you, but I'm not counting that as part of this. I want you to think about those three words for a moment. What comes to your mind when you hear those three words? Everlasting. What else? Boy, the last two questions y'all talked. Now no one's talking. Everlasting.
Well, we've seen just in this last few days, everything around us changed, perish, spoil, all that's mentioned here with God, Christ, that doesn't happen.
You didn't lose no good deer sausage, did you? You didn't lose no good deer sausage in the... Okay, good. Okay. You start losing power, you better holler. We'll get it taken care of. We realize that in this life, things are perishable. You know, things in the pantry go bad. Things in the freezer can go bad. Your money can lose value. Your body can go bad. We understand that in this life things go bad. But when we read this list, and you're exactly right, when we read this list here, those three words, the imperishable, undefiled, and unfading, boy, I think of what Jesus says Store up for yourselves treasures where? And he calls it where rust and moths. I was trying to think what the old King James said. Was it vermin? Was that vermin? Is it not vermin? Am I got a different one? Anyways, but where moths and rust do not break in and steal, but where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. And so that's kind of the verse that came to my mind, was this reality that we are called to store up ourselves a treasure in heaven. Roger wrote down here Romans chapter 8, verses 35 through 39. I think it's a wonderful reference here, because Romans chapter 8, verses 35 through 39 is the phrasing where Paul says, nothing can separate you from the love of Christ. Nothing. I guess except for you. Is that what you said? Nothing except for your own personal choices, but nothing can separate you from the love of Christ. And so I want to bring that thought here, because we were coming to this verse, imperishable, undefiled, and unfading. What Jesus has purchased and has put in heaven for you and for me is a surefire guarantee to be there. And so we as believers in the middle of persecution are called to look to those things. How difficult is it to look to a heavenly reward in the middle of the pains of this life?
It's not easy because you have to live in this life.
There's a real part. I thank you for that. There's a real part. It's not easy, because every day we live in a fallen world.
There's hard too in 2 Peter 3 here, it says we ought to live holy lives, and God need to look forward to the day of God and the heaven come. But it's hard to do sometimes.
Man, there's a story in I believe it's in the Apocrypha. Jim, I might need your help on a reference for this. And it may not even be the Apocrypha. It may be something else. But there's a story about a mother who had, I think it was 7 sons. And they were brought before, I'm going to say the Romans, but they were brought before somebody and were told that they needed to eat pork. And the Roman, like I said, I'm saying it's Roman. It might not have been, but he starts to say, well, we'll kill the son. And they start killing son right down the line. Eat pork. They refuse. But they have their mother present for the executions, and each son looks to the mom, and the mom makes a comment at the very end where she said, I would much rather endure this pain than to see my sons basically violate their faith. Now, that's a very crude interpretation of that account. And Jim, if you come across it, or do you know what I'm thinking of? If you come across it sometime, I have yet to suffer like that. Now, granted, the other day my right leg hurt like you wouldn't believe. I don't know what I did to it. I guess I slept on it wrong. I probably coughed, and then if you throw everything out when you get a good cough or a good sneeze, I don't know what happened, but I have yet to suffer to the point where I'm looking at someone executing my sons and saying, I would prefer them to stay faithful than I would for them to eat that pork.
What's interesting about it is this lady understood the eternal as opposed to here. Think about it.
She understood imperishable, undefiled, and unfading better than I got it. For a salvation that's ready to be revealed in the last times. This persecution that they are enduring is a persecution that's going to cause many of them to die. But it's a persecution that Peter is promising. In their obedience, in their faithfulness, there is a salvation through the fire. That's kind of the verse 7, that gold, it perishes. All the stuff of this world, the temporal stuff, it's going to disappear. Man, there is a spiritual that will not disappear. Now, I love verse 8. Verse 8 was one verses 8 was one that I kind of marked out to the side, and I said, there is something powerful here. It reminded me of the definition of faith in Hebrews chapter 11. Though you have not seen him, you love him. What's the definition of faith according to Hebrews 11?
Substance things hope for, evidence of things not seen.
Yeah.
Hope that we have.
Faith, by definition, is something you can't see. It's a perception. You can see the evidence of things, but you can't see it. It's a perception. And so as I'm reading verse 8, he says, though you haven't seen him, you haven't seen the resurrection, or for this time period, some of them might have been still alive. But we're talking about the revelation of Jesus, which is the highlight that comes down here in the next couple of verses. The revelation of Jesus. He says, though you haven't seen him, you love him. Friends, none of us were present the day Jesus came out of that tomb. None of us were present for the 40 some odd days he walked on the earth after. Not a one of us have seen that. But do you love him? Though you do not see him, though you do not now see him, you believe in him and rejoice with joy. That's just amazing, just beyond your comprehension. And then he says, obtaining the outcome of your faith, the salvation of your souls. I find verse 8 interesting. And then the clause that comes in verse 10, really for 10 through 12, is interesting. He looks back at this point to a series of prophets. And he says that you have the prophets, which makes it very interesting because that takes up 2/4 of our entire biblical canon that we carry. And he says that those people studied diligently to look forward to the coming of the Christ. They studied, they prayed, they asked the Spirit that dwelt within them. They were looking for something that we have the privilege of looking at, something that we have the privilege of already knowing. That's why it was one of the things that I found most interesting in today's sermon was when I read, today's sermon, I read the parable, and reading the parable, I already know all the answers. I grew up probably since the age of 3 or 4 going to church. So reading the parable, I knew the answers. But what's it like for a group of people who don't know the answers? What's it like for a group of people who that's all brand new? What's it like for a group of people, and this is your Old Testament folks for a moment, who, when Jeremiah writes, what text does Jeremiah have to go off of? Well, he doesn't have near as much as we do. And he was searching for Jesus. Boy, if I searched for Jesus like that, Rometta, what would my life look like? If I searched for Jesus like that. Now, let's spend a moment just kind of trying to apply this for a moment. Why do Christians always have reasons for hope and joy? We always have a looking forward to heaven. What else could we say? Why do Christians have a reason for joy and just genuine happiness?
Our sins have been forgiven.
We don't walk with chains. There is true forgiveness there, which grants us then opportunity for heaven. What else?
we have hope. And as, you know, we do study the prophets, there's, to me, I look at all these tragic things that happen. And, you know, God's wrath because they disobeyed. But he always kept hope alive with them. And for us, you know, talking about Jeremiah and those prophets and how they really had to hunt things out, and they didn't have the community that we have today. And I know it's hard when you're thinking about community because it's here now, but because they chose community, we learn from all their heart and their perseverance.
Oh, wonderful. We do. The value that they bring and the example that they set is an example that I would hope I can learn, and I hope we could all learn together. Roger wrote down this verse. Romans chapter 8, verse 11. If you have a Bible, you can pull it up over there on yours, but Romans chapter 8, verse 11. Sorry, I don't already have it pulled up. But if the spirit of him who raised Jesus from the dead dwells in you, he who raised Christ from the dead will also give life to your mortal bodies through his Spirit who dwells in you. I think the same could also be said from Philippians chapter 3. This is Philippians chapter 3, verse 10. Yet again, this is another reference that Roger provided. That I may know him and the power of his resurrection, that I may share in his suffering, becoming like him in death, that by any means possible I may attain the resurrection from the dead. I love Paul's words there, that I'm going to cling to the resurrection with all cost.
No fear of death.
There is no fear. There is no fear. Boy, sometimes we have a fear of it, don't we?
Nothing is good.
The Lord's still working on me, Miss Betty. He's still working on me. Let's move forward. I've got just a few more moments, and we won't spend a whole lot of time. I'm going to trust you to go through 13 through 25 on your own, or I'm going to trust that maybe Roger will work it into some sort of a future lesson. There are a couple of words I want you to underline in your Bibles, though. This was a point that I think is powerful. In verses 13 through 25, there are four key phrases, four key ideas that really define this section. Therefore, preparing your mind for action, be sober-minded, and this is where it is. Set your hope fully on the grace that will be brought to you at the revelation of Jesus Christ. So that's verse 13. Set your hope fully on grace. I think that that's a great first point for this passage, for this text. We're not going to read this text for the sake of our time together, I guess. But the second one comes down in verse 16. You could also look at verse 15, but 16 is the quote that I think sums it up best of all. You shall be holy, for I am holy. The next phrase would be verse 17. Conduct yourself with fear. And then the fourth phrase is in verse 22. Love one another earnestly from a pure heart. Those are the four phrases that I think give us great outline to this section of the text. And so as we're looking at the first one, is that you will set your hope fully on grace. When you're dealing with the times of persecution, when you're dealing with the times of struggle, the idea that we will first set ourselves fully on grace is powerful. Now, why would that be a powerful idea?
Only through grace are saved by faith.
Only through grace. We just finished saying, didn't we? That the Lord is still working on me. I know beyond the shadow of a doubt He's still working on you. I don't even have to know you that well to know that. But I know He is. It's only by grace that we are saved, through faith. And so I think that Peter's call to set your hope fully on grace is an adequate call. Because first off, in the world of persecution, am I going to be perfect? You line me up and say eat a sausage link, I'll probably eat sausage. I hate to admit it. I'll probably eat sausage. Well, especially with some deer sausage. I'm trying to drop some good hints over there. But, we probably all might cave in certain areas. Peter says, set your hope firmly on grace. This is the same grace that brought to you the revelation of Jesus Christ. As obedient children, don't be conformed to the passions of this world. Don't let this world define the way you act. And that's where the second call is. You are to be holy as God is holy. So we understand grace, and I think that's the first foundation, is that we have to be graceful people. We have to be people filled with grace. But secondly, grace does not then mean that I can go on sinning. What does Paul say about that? Should I continue in sin that grace may abound? No. Exclamation mark. No, I should not do that. You are called to be holy. Now here's the part I always struggle with. You're called to be holy as who? Any of y'all reached that level yet? Do you think God was serious when He said it? You see, I have to say too, if I ask the question, do I think God was serious when He said it? I either have to say, no, He wasn't serious, which I have a hard time with. I'd have a real hard time saying God said something He wasn't serious about. Or I have to say He was serious. And He says the call for you to strive is to be holy as I set the example for. Chris?
I don't know why I had thought of this before, but I just saw it in 20. He was chosen before the creation of the world. I had always incorrectly thought all this was enacted in fall and garden, but God did all this before He even created them. So that's we have a hard enough time understanding His dimension of His love for His creation. He had this in mind before He even thought about bringing His Son to earth. More to not understand.
Well, and you know what else that gets me about that, Chris? He knew, and He still did it. If I got the foresight to know that something bad's going to happen, I'm going to do the opposite. If I know that I could save my life by putting on a seatbelt, you better believe I'm going to put a seatbelt on. He knew, and He still did it. Conduct yourself with fear, verse 17. I think that that's a good partner with living holy. You're called to live a holy life. Don't belittle the call. We sometimes like to. Well, it's okay, we're working on it. Well, working on it's okay. But if you're not seriously working, it's like I work on going to the gym. Last time I've been to the gym has been over a year. So working on it can mean a lot of different things in the way we use it. Call to holiness is serious. But then he puts a little clarifier on it. He says, conduct yourself with fear. Why do you think he asks that? Or why do you think he says that? The key's in the verse if you want to look at the start of verse 17.
We're going to be judged.
You're going to be judged. Last time I went before a judge, I was scared. You know why? I didn't want to pay the speeding ticket that I got. I deserved it. It was $185. I paid the money for it. Oh, hated it. Well, I was. It's the town of Elida, New Mexico. I can tell you everything about it. It's a trashy little dump of a town, but they have one cop, and he makes his salary off that. I turned my cruise off. We're cruising into town. The speed limits are 75 until you get to towns, and then and in Elida, it goes from 75 to like 35 fairly quickly. Well, I turned my cruise off, and I'm like, I'm just gonna, I'm not gonna brake. Nothing's there, but that cop was there. He got me too. It was my fault, but I didn't like paying it anyways. We have a fear when we know there's a punishment coming. But this fear also has a respect side. I wouldn't go into the judge afraid that he's going to kill me. But if I go to the judge of all, the fear that we're told to have there is you don't fear the people who can hurt my body. Remember, this is a persecution text. I don't fear the people who can hurt the body. Who do I fear? The person who can cast the soul and the body into damnation. That's the person that I fear. So when I'm writing to a people who are enduring persecution, boy, I'm told to fear. They don't need to be fearing whoever's around. They need to fear God. Final call, and I'll dismiss you. Down in verse 22. Love one another earnestly from a pure heart. He says, you're born new. You're a new creature. You come from you are from perishable seed, but you're about to be imperishable. That new birth is imperishable. Verse 24, he says, all flesh is like grass, and all of its glory like the flower of the grass. But the grass withers, the flower fails, but the word of the Lord remains. Love one another earnestly. You've purified your heart. You've purified your soul, Peter says. And by your obedience to Jesus, you're showing that that's happening. You're showing that your life is being changed. And since you have changed your life, develop now a sincere brotherly love. I can fake a good life for a good while. I'm a good faker. I'm sure most of you probably are good fakers. You can smile for so long. You can plaster the good face on. But he says you do, once you've gotten your life right, a sincere brotherly love is what you look for. That's no longer faking it. That's no longer I'm trying. That's where it says I love the other people who I serve the Lord with. I love people who love the Lord. And I do it because it's genuinely who I am. So today, I'll leave you with 1 Peter. Study it on your own. If you have the little books, spend some time studying it. Roger, sorry I butchered your class, but I'll let you fix it. I'll leave you the mess and you can repair it. Thank you so much for your attention, your time, being patient with me and us today. I hope you have power if you're going home and didn't have power. I hope you have. Oh, you didn't have power, Bobby? Oh, at least Mama. Oh no, your sump pump. Is there something we can do for you, Bobby? I bring an extension cord. I told I've got power, my neighbors don't. I told them, I said, we'll run an extension cord. We just got to get enough cords. And they said, we're fine, a little inconvenient. I'm like, I'd get a cord. I'd have heat. Anyways, thank you so much. Have a wonderful day.